What if I told you that the secret to a happy, unbreakable marriage isn't grand gestures or endless gifts, but something far deeper, something your heart and soul can feel every single day? Today, we will unlock the timeless wisdom of Islam that transforms ordinary relationships into extraordinary bonds, filled with love, mercy, and spiritual connection. Peace be upon you all, and may Allah's mercy and blessings fill your hearts. Today, we explore a topic that is both timeless and urgently needed in our lives: cultivating love and connection within marriage. Many couples enter marriage with high hopes and dreams. Yet over time, the flame of love may flicker under the weight of daily stress, misunderstandings, or unmet expectations. But Islam, with its profound wisdom, teaches us that love is not merely a fleeting feeling. It is a conscious, daily effort, a sacred responsibility, and a pathway to both spiritual and emotional fulfillment. When we view marriage through the lens of faith, we see it as a trust, an amana, that requires sincerity, patience, and mercy. The Prophet reminded us that the best among us are those who are best to their families. This is not just advice, it is a blueprint for building connection, trust, and intimacy that can withstand any trial. Love in marriage is nurtured not only through grand gestures, but through kindness in speech, attentive listening, and heartfelt appreciation for one another. It is found in the small moments: a gentle smile, a word of encouragement, a shared prayer, a silent supplication for your spouse. Moreover, spiritual alignment strengthens emotional intimacy. Couples who remember Allah together, who seek guidance from the Quran and Sunnah, and who make their marriage a joint journey toward Allah, experience a bond that is far deeper than the world can offer. This is the kind of love that grows in hardship, shines in patience, and blossoms in gratitude. So, today, let us embark on a journey to cultivate love in marriage, not just as a desire of the heart, but as an act of worship, a conscious effort rooted in Islamic guidance. Together, we will learn how to transform everyday interactions into opportunities for connection, mercy, and shared spiritual growth. Because when love is cultivated with faith, it becomes a sanctuary, a source of peace, and a reflection of Allah's mercy in our lives. In Islam, love within marriage is not merely an emotion or a fleeting sentiment. It is a sacred responsibility, a trust, amana, entrusted to each spouse by Allah. When a man and a woman unite in marriage, they enter into a covenant that carries spiritual weight, moral obligations, and divine guidance. This covenant is not meant to be taken lightly. It is a relationship that reflects the mercy of Allah in our lives, a living example of His attributes of compassion, patience, and forgiveness. To view love as a sacred responsibility is to recognize that our actions, words, and intentions toward our spouse are acts of worship, capable of earning Allah's pleasure or displeasure. The Quran emphasizes the sanctity of this bond, and among His signs is that He created for you from yourselves mates, that you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you affection and mercy. Indeed, in that are signs for a people who reflect. Surah Ar-Rum 30:21. This verse beautifully illustrates that love and mercy are not optional in marriage. They are divine gifts, intertwined and inseparable. As spouses, we are called not just to feel love, but to actively cultivate it through compassion, respect, and care. Our love is a responsibility because it affects not only our happiness but also the stability of our family, the spiritual environment of our home, and our accountability before Allah. Recognizing love as a responsibility means shifting from a mindset of self-centered desire to one of selfless commitment. It requires us to actively protect the emotional and spiritual well-being of our spouse. Just as a gardener tends carefully to plants, ensuring they receive sunlight, water, and nourishment, spouses must care for their love, ensuring it is nurtured daily. Neglecting this responsibility can lead to misunderstandings, resentment, and distance, while fulfilling it with sincerity and devotion brings harmony, peace, and mutual growth. The Prophet provided the most beautiful example of love as responsibility. His interactions with his wives were filled with respect, consideration, and mercy. He never ignored their feelings, always communicated with kindness, and demonstrated patience even in moments of disagreement. His love was active, practical, and purposeful, an embodiment of responsibility rather than mere sentiment. Following this example, spouses today can see that love requires effort. It requires listening attentively, speaking gently, forgiving mistakes, and prioritizing the needs and comfort of one another. One of the most profound aspects of this sacred responsibility is recognizing that love is a covenant with consequences. When spouses act with care, mercy, and integrity, they earn the pleasure of Allah and create a home filled with blessing. Conversely, neglecting this responsibility, mistreating, or disregarding the emotional and spiritual needs of one another can have consequences not only in worldly life, but also in the hereafter. Therefore, love is not just about being happy together. It is about fulfilling a duty with sincerity, aligning our hearts with Allah's guidance, and striving to embody His mercy through our relationship. Love as a sacred responsibility also requires balance between rights and duties. Each spouse has the right to kindness, respect, and consideration, and the duty to reciprocate these qualities. Islam teaches that marriage is a partnership built on mutual care and accountability. The Prophet said, "The best of you are those who are best to their wives." This highlights that our responsibility in love is not passive. It is measured by the effort we put into understanding, supporting, and honoring our spouse. A spouse who actively fulfills this responsibility contributes not only to the strength of their marriage, but to their own spiritual growth. Another dimension of this responsibility is the protection of love through patience and forgiveness. No marriage is without challenges. Disagreements, misunderstandings, and moments of hurt are inevitable. However, treating love as a sacred responsibility means that we do not abandon our duty to one another in times of difficulty. Instead, we approach conflict with patience, humility, and a desire for reconciliation. Forgiving each other, overlooking shortcomings, and striving for mutual improvement are all manifestations of responsible love, rooted in faith and trust in Allah's guidance. Additionally, love as a responsibility encourages us to invest in the emotional and spiritual development of our spouse. This can include supporting them in their personal growth, sharing acts of worship, praying together, and reminding each other of Allah's presence. Such acts strengthen the bond and make love a living, dynamic force rather than a static feeling. It transforms marriage into a spiritual journey where both partners help each other attain tranquility, contentment, and closeness to Allah. Ultimately, recognizing love as a sacred responsibility shifts our perspective from seeking love for our own satisfaction to giving love as a means of service and devotion. Every kind word, every act of consideration, and every moment of patience becomes an offering to Allah, elevating the marriage from a worldly arrangement to an avenue of spiritual fulfillment. When love is approached in this way, it transcends superficial attraction or temporary emotions. It becomes a divine partnership, guided by mercy, strengthened by faith, and sustained by conscious effort. In conclusion, love as a sacred responsibility is a principle that transforms marriage from a personal desire into a spiritual act of worship. It requires intention, effort, and mindfulness in every interaction with one's spouse. It calls us to emulate the Prophet's mercy and compassion, to nurture affection and tranquility, and to honor the trust that Allah has placed in our hearts. By embracing this responsibility, we not only create enduring emotional bonds, but also cultivate a home filled with peace, mercy, and divine blessings. a reflection of Allah's love manifested through our own faithful hearts. Marriage is one of the most beautiful blessings in Islam, yet it is also one of the greatest responsibilities. While love is a sacred trust, as we discussed earlier, that love is sustained, deepened, and enriched primarily through communication and compassion. A strong marital connection does not happen by chance. It is built through intentional dialogue, patient listening, empathy, and heartfelt care. In Islam, communication is not only a tool for resolving conflicts, it is a pathway to mercy, understanding, and spiritual closeness between spouses. The Quran reminds us of the importance of kindness in speech, and speak to people good words. Surah Al-Baqarah 283. This commandment applies first and foremost within the sacred bond of marriage. Words have immense power. They can heal wounds, strengthen bonds, and create an environment of love and tranquility. Or they can hurt, alienate, and destroy trust. Thus, couples are encouraged to communicate not only their needs and concerns, but also their appreciation, admiration, and affection. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to nurture the soul of the relationship and to reflect the mercy of Allah in daily life. True connection begins with listening with intention. Many conflicts in marriage arise not because of major disagreements, but because one or both spouses feel unheard, misunderstood, or dismissed. Listening deeply means giving your full attention, pausing judgments, and striving to understand not only the words your spouse speaks, but the emotions behind them. The Prophet exemplified this through his attentive and patient interactions with his wives. He would listen, ask questions, and respond with care, even in the simplest of daily matters. By following his example, couples today can transform communication from a mere exchange of information into a bridge of empathy and trust. Compassion is the second pillar that strengthens marital connection. Compassion is more than feelings of affection. It is active care, expressed in actions and decisions. Compassion is comforting your spouse when they are burdened, forgiving their mistakes, easing their worries, and celebrating their joys. Islam places tremendous emphasis on mercy and compassion within marriage. The Prophet said, "The best of you are those who are best to their families." This profound statement highlights that love without compassion is incomplete, and true connection flourishes when both spouses actively cultivate mercy in every interaction. Effective communication is not limited to solving conflicts. It is also about expressing gratitude, reassurance, and encouragement. Daily life can become repetitive, and over time, small acts of appreciation may be taken for granted. Yet, a simple thank you, a word of encouragement, or a loving acknowledgement of your spouse's efforts can rekindle warmth and strengthen emotional intimacy. In Islam, such expressions are considered acts of kindness that please Allah and cultivate a positive, nurturing environment in the home. Patience and empathy are also crucial components of compassionate communication. No spouse is perfect, and misunderstandings, mistakes, and differences are natural. Islam teaches that couples should approach these moments with patience and understanding, rather than harshness or judgment. The Quran instructs, "And live with them in kindness." Surah An-Nisa 4:19. Kindness in this context is multidimensional. It includes speaking gently, avoiding anger, showing tolerance, and striving to understand your spouse's perspective. Compassionate communication transforms conflicts into opportunities for growth and understanding, rather than sources of resentment or separation. Another essential aspect of connection through communication is emotional transparency. Spouses are encouraged to share their feelings, fears, dreams, and aspirations with each other. Islam encourages sincerity and openness in relationships. When partners feel safe expressing their hearts without fear of judgment or ridicule, trust deepens and the emotional bond strengthens. This level of connection cannot exist without intentional effort, attentive listening, and heartfelt compassion. Spiritual connection further enhances communication and compassion. Couples who pray to get her, seek guidance from the Quran, and make dhikr, remembrance of Allah. A shared practice often find that their words carry more love, patience, and understanding. Allah's presence in the home transforms ordinary interactions into spiritually meaningful acts. Compassion becomes a reflection of divine mercy, and communication becomes a channel for mutual growth and closeness, not just an exchange of words. Finally, connection through communication and compassion is a lifelong journey, not a destination. It requires conscious effort, reflection, and the willingness to grow alongside one another. Small, consistent actions, listening attentively, speaking kindly, forgiving mistakes, showing empathy, and nurturing emotional openness, accumulate over time to create a marriage filled with love, trust, and harmony. Couples who embrace this approach experience a bond that is resilient to trials, enriched by shared understanding, and illuminated by spiritual fulfillment. In conclusion, marriage thrives when communication is intentional and compassion is abundant. Words and actions, patience and understanding, empathy and emotional honesty, all these elements together form the foundation of a deep and enduring connection. In Islam, this connection is not optional. It is a divine responsibility, a sacred trust, and a reflection of Allah's mercy. By committing to communicate with love, to listen with care, and to act with compassion, spouses do not merely maintain a relationship. They cultivate a sanctuary of peace, affection, and spiritual growth. In this way, the home becomes a place where love is not only felt, but consciously nurtured, honored, and cherished, fulfilling the purpose of marriage as Allah intended, a source of mercy, tranquility, and blessing for both partners and generations to come. Marriage in Islam is not merely a social contract or a relationship built on companionship and shared responsibilities. It is a spiritual journey where two hearts come together under the guidance and mercy of Allah. While emotional attraction and mutual affection are important, the deepest, most enduring bonds in marriage are formed when both spouses share spiritual alignment. This alignment is not a passive state. It is an intentional, daily commitment to live according to Allah's guidance, to support each other in faith, and to make Allah the center of the marital relationship. When couples align their hearts spiritually, emotional closeness naturally follows, creating a love that is resilient, nurturing, and deeply fulfilling. The Quran emphasizes the sacredness of this connection, and among His signs is that He created for you from yourselves mates that you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you affection and mercy. Surah Ar-Rum 30:21. Notice how the verse links tranquility, affection, and mercy with the divine design of marriage. True emotional connection is not merely the result of compatibility or attraction, it is the outcome of spiritual harmony and shared commitment to pleasing Allah. Couples who pray together, remember Allah together, and seek guidance from the Quran experience a sense of unity that surpasses worldly understanding. This is spiritual alignment at work, hearts connected through faith, creating an emotional bond fortified by divine blessing. Spiritual alignment begins with shared acts of worship. Praying together, reading the Quran together, making dhikr, and engaging in mutual supplication dua cultivates a sense of intimacy that is profound and lasting. These practices are not rituals for obligation alone. They are tools that strengthen understanding, empathy, and emotional closeness. When a couple prays together, they share not only the physical act of worship, but also their hopes, fears, attitude, and trust in Allah. This shared vulnerability fosters a deep sense of togetherness, that emotional expression alone cannot achieve. Another key aspect of spiritual alignment is mutual accountability in faith and character. Couples aligned in spirituality encourage each other toward goodness, patience, forgiveness, and moral excellence. When spouses gently remind one another of Allah, correct each other with wisdom, and support each other's spiritual growth, they build a partnership rooted in trust and admiration. Emotional bonds deepen because both partners know that they are walking the path of life together with purpose and intention, seeking Allah's pleasure above all else. This mutual spiritual support strengthens the relationship against trials, disagreements, and worldly distractions, making love enduring and resilient. Prophet Muhammad exemplified the importance of spiritual alignment in marriage. His relationship with his wives was not only filled with kindness, mercy, and compassion, but it was also deeply rooted in shared faith. He engaged them in discussions about religion, encouraged them to grow spiritually, and treated acts of worship as a shared journey rather than an individual obligation. Following this model, couples today can see that spiritual alignment is not about rigid ritual compliance. It is about creating a shared life centered on Allah's guidance, where every action, word, and intention is an opportunity to grow closer both to Allah and to one another. Spiritual alignment also strengthens emotional bonds by fostering forgiveness and patience. When challenges arise, such as disagreements, unmet expectations, or personal flaws, spouses with aligned hearts turn to Allah for guidance. They approach conflict with patience, humility, and a desire for reconciliation, remembering that their relationship is a sacred trust and that perfectio exists only with Allah. This mindset allows couples to forgive more readily, empathize more deeply, and maintain emotional closeness even in difficult times. Spiritual alignment transforms obstacles into opportunities for emotional and spiritual growth. Moreover, couples who cultivate spiritual alignment often share a vision for life and family grounded in faith. This shared vision extends beyond the relationship itself. It encompasses raising children with strong values, creating a home infused with remembrance of Allah, and living with purpose and integrity. When both partners are spiritually aligned, their hearts resonate with the same intentions, creating harmony in decision-making, mutual respect, and emotional intimacy. This alignment prevents drift in the relationship and creates a bond that is both meaningful and enduring. Another dimension of spiritual alignment is gratitude and reflection. Couples who reflect together on the blessings Allah has given them, the gift of a spouse, a home, children, and health, develop a deep appreciation for one another. Gratitude nurtures emotional closeness because it shifts the focus from flaws and complaints to love, mercy, and shared blessings. By expressing gratitude together and acknowledging the divine role in their relationship, couples reinforce the spiritual and emotional connection that strengthens their marriage. Ultimately, spiritual alignment transforms love from a temporary feeling into a permanent state of harmony and fulfillment. It ensures that emotional closeness is not dependent on circumstances, moods, or fleeting attractions, but on the eternal foundation of faith, trust, and mutual devotion to Allah. Love becomes a conscious, deliberate act of worship, manifested in communication, compassion, forgiveness, and shared purpose. Emotional bonds flourish when spouses prioritize Allah's guidance, support each other in righteousness, and integrate spiritual practices into daily life. In conclusion, emotional intimacy in marriage is inseparable from spiritual alignment. Couples who seek to align their hearts with Allah experience love that is deeper, steadier, and more resilient than any worldly measure of connection. Spiritual alignment strengthens communication, fosters compassion, encourages patience, and nurtures a home filled with mercy and tranquility. By making Allah the center of their relationship, couples transform ordinary love into a sacred, enduring bond that benefits not only themselves, but also their families, their community, and their souls. When hearts are united in faith, emotional closeness becomes natural, love becomes purposeful, and marriage becomes a source of spiritual fulfillment, divine blessing, and eternal reward.